Allow me to extend a warm welcome to all the viewers on the internet and around the world. It is sunrise on YouTube, morning on Facebook, noon on Twitter, midday on Threads, afternoon on Twitch, sunset on Instagram, and evening on Rumble. I am your host, the Ancient One, the Bachelor Supreme, the Phantom Menace, he who remains, and the master of the deceptive arts. We are broadcasting live directly from the sanctum of solitude and the citadel at the end of time. Good evening, everyone. I am the Ancient One, the Bachelor Supreme, the Phantom Menace, he who remains, the master of the deceptive arts, and I return to you once again as the extorted voice of the vasectomites. And today, of all days, in the middle of one of my own deceptions, I was deceived and I was robbed. Well, I wasn't robbed exactly in as much as I was swindled. But I consider it very much a robbery. Right, and I was robbed by a person that quite frankly that I knew, you know, but also I knew this person well enough that I knew not to trust them, and while I feel robbed, the more accurate description is that I was swindled, I was hustled, and I was deceived by someone who is now very, very much a former associate. Not a friend, but someone that you could consider as, a long-term associate, somebody that I've known for a very, very long time. So how do I describe what happened? Okay, so right now I'm not in the sanctum of solitude. I'm not even in the country where I'm supposed to be. I'm in a whole nother country. I'm doing a temporal pincer move. For you time travelers out there, temporal pincer moves, very tricky. So I'm in the middle of my own deception, which you weren't actually supposed to know about because things were supposed to run smoothly, which they never do in a temporal pincer movement. And ultimately, I lost time. I lost time during the process of being robbed. So how does a temporal pincer move works? Effectively, you're trying to move to a different place, conduct an action, and return back to the place where you were more or less at the time where you were supposed to be without appearing as though you had actually left. So, is this possible in our reality? Yes, it is. It's actually quite simple if you understand the mechanics of time travel. Let me explain. So, if the country that you are in right now is country A, let's say you are in, I'm going to say, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, right? So, you're in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and you fly to, let's say, Bulgaria. So you're in Saudi Arabia, you fly to Bulgaria. Now, Bulgaria could be in Eastern Europe, I don't know. But Bulgaria could be about 3 hours in time difference from Saudi Arabia. So what you want to do, but also it's 3 hours time difference, but it's 7 hours away. So it's 3 hours time difference and 7 hours away, but it's 3 hours back in time. So for instance, If it's 5 o'clock in Bulgaria today, 5 o'clock in the evening, in Saudi Arabia, it will be today at 8 o'clock, right? So now I'm in our temporal pincer movement. I'm in Bulgaria. So I get on the plane. I travel 7 hours to Bulgaria, only to arrive, which technically 3 hours behind, which means I only lose about 4 hours of the day, right? So I still have an additional 4 hours of time here in Bulgaria. But the aim is to return, to spend the full day in Bulgaria. So today, let's say yesterday was the 15th. So I travel on the 15th. I arrive earlier today on the 15th. So I leave Saudi Arabia at midnight, only to arrive at 4 o'clock in Bulgaria instead of 7 o'clock, which is going to be the time in Saudi Arabia. So now I've bought myself 4 extra hours in Bulgaria. So I'm doing my thing, I'm doing my thing. The aim here is to then return back into to spend the full day in Bulgaria. Go back very early the next day so that I can travel 6 hours, 7 hours forward in time. But instead of arriving the next day, I arrive on the same day. So effectively, I get to steal a day in between. So there's a day here that really is off the books. It's completely off the books because I'm where I'm supposed to be, but I'm also over here and then I'm immediately back to where I'm supposed to be on the same day that I'm supposed to be. When in fact, yesterday, I was in a completely different country, living a completely different life, doing completely different things. Right. So this is where I am in Bulgaria. I'm not in Bulgaria. I'm nowhere near Bulgaria, by the way. But this is how it happened, right? So I'm in the middle of my own time deception, right? And while I'm in the middle of this deception, this gentleman decides to pull a deception on his own, right? And to describe properly what is happening here, you have to go back many years ago, right? You see, to understand this individual is is to talk about the story of Buckstars. You know, Buckstars coffee. You know, you turn it around, stop. You know what I'm talking about, Buckstars. It's really the story of the Buckstar versus the Chaiwala, right? So the corporation versus the mom and pop store, as they call it, right? Versus the individual. So here we're using the analogy of coffee, right? So it's really and a chaiwala is in some parts of India is considered a street level tea merchant, right? A street level tea merchant, right? As it's known in some cultures, in some parts of India. So many years ago, when the ancient one was very young, a student in university and whatnot, still trying to stand on my own 2 feet. The this chaiwala was ahead of his time. I mean, decades ahead of his time, right? He opened a very small stand near college, and that stand was selling pretty much tea and coffee to people at like what is the equivalent of like $1, right? Or less than $1. It must have been like 50 cents a cup or something, and and he sold a fair bit of tea and coffee. He sold it depending on the time of the day, of course, morning, afternoon, that kind of thing. He would sell a fair bit of tea and coffee, but most of his time was spent just sitting around doing absolutely nothing, right? Most of the time he wasn't actually making a lot of money, right? He made a fair bit of money. He made some money, but he didn't make enough money to like get rich. Now, at the time you have to remember, you are serving students, so you're serving really a demographic of people that is traditionally poor, right? So if you have a buck to a student who has 20 cents, it appears like you have a lot of money when in reality you're not actually getting rich. Skip 3 or 4 decades later, right? This individual, this chaiwala, is still a chaiwala. He's still selling coffee, right? So what he's done now is he's got a bigger stand, right? But he's still pretty much selling coffee the way he's always pretty much sold tea and coffee. The decades later, like 3 decades later, 30 years later, right? Like it's been decades since I left university, right? And I'm grateful because the skills that I learned at university still prove useful today. But it's been decades. That's why I'm the ancient one, man. I'm not a young buck. I'm not a young buck. But anyway, still got robbed. The master of the deceptive arts still got robbed. Can you believe that? Can you believe? You know what? Let me just tell you what happened. Let me just tell you what happened. There's a lesson in this for all of us, but let me tell you what happened. So, 25 years later, this guy is still selling coffee, right? But he expanded his business somewhat. So now he's selling like you can buy like coffee beans and ground coffee that you can take and go make at home or whatever. You can buy like some tea bags of your own and whatnot, but it's really nothing substantial. It's really nothing to talk about, right? And he's selling these at like a fair price. Now, as a student, I used to buy from him all the time, so I know where his location is, and I'm also like aware of the history. It's like when you support a sports team, like the people that support United. You know which United I'm talking about. They remember the good old days. So they really hold on to the tradition, the culture, even though their team is really not doing the thing, right? So I remember buying that dollar coffee, and quite frankly, I remember enjoying it because there was a trick to it that you get to make it your own way and whatnot. But that was decades ago, you know and since then I've reached the stars. You know what I mean? I became the ancient one. I became the ancient one. I rose to the through the ranks and became the bachelor supreme. I crowned myself, no thanks to you, the master of the deceptive arts, even though I've been deceived today, stabbed in the back, you know. And I also decided that I will be the one who remains after everything has been said and done. So this is my resume. This is what I've done in my life after all these years, and he is still selling $1 coffee. He's still selling $1 coffee, but now the years have gone, the economy has changed, inflation is through the roof, but he's still selling it at the same price, so he's selling it at a loss, right? He's selling it at a loss because he should be selling it at something like 7, 8, maybe $10 a cup. He's still selling it at $1. It's a tremendous expense. It's a tremendous loss. You can see on his face, man, that business is just not happening. Like clothes are old. Like he was at street level 20 years ago and he's still at street level, right? But then what happened? What happened is Buckstar built a shop franchise outlet right across the street. And then Buckstar built another coffee shop franchise outlet further down the road. And then another one around the corner. And they continued to expand, you know. But but I would, from time to time pop in to get, a cup of coffee, and maybe some bags of coffee, right? Especially when you're traveling all over the world. There are just certain things that you cannot get. There are certain things, I promise you, that are everywhere, like the golden M in the sky, like the Buckstar Coffee shop franchise outlets, right? These things are ubiquitous and standardized all over the world. But then there are some things that are just not available the way you know them to be, right? They are just normal to a particular part of the world. And so I'd pop in, grab some coffee, grab some bags, and a little bit of some imported tea and a handful of other useless things that are nice to have, and then proceed with my travels, right? And every ever so often, I'll pop in and get some tea and coffee. But this time, I decided, you know what? Let me call in ahead, right? So that he can have it ready and I could just pop in, pick it up, and go on about my business. Especially now during this temporal pincer move, right? Cause like time is of the essence. Yes, I bought 4 hours, which I lost all of that, by the way, waiting for this loser and this liar, right? This deceiver, huh? If you can believe that, right? So I decided, let me call in ahead and place my order. So the place, the order is about $200, right? Which isn't that bad. It's all right, right? So I get in there and so he knows I'm coming. I call him, I tell him I'm on the way. He knows I'm coming. He tells me he has everything ready. He tells me he has everything ready. So as soon as I arrive, one of the things he says, "Oh man, I just need to finalize everything and in the last minute." But like I told him I was coming, like he knew I was coming, right? So anyway, I was like, you know what? This guy is an ultimate bender. There's a reason why he's still out there on the street, because he's not playing the game the way the corporation does. Corporations, they stick very closely to rules and standards and that kind of things, right? As well they should. As well they should. But yes, so it all adds up to about $200. So I come in there and we do some chit chat, some nonsense, right? But then he comes up, suddenly, serendipitously, instinctively, instantly, spontaneously, comes up with an idea, some type of deal that he can give me, some better deal, which is good, and it's more good and less bad, and at the end it's a better result at a lower cost over time and overall for you, he says, right? So one of the things is that because I'm gone for months at a time, so I'll take enough of something to sustain me for the time that I'm away. So he knows this, right? He uses this pattern. But in my mind, I'm dealing with a person who's running a business. But obviously, he's not the Buckstar franchise. He's just he's just a guy, right? And I don't care what this knee bender's problems really are. I really don't care what this knee bender's problems really are. But, he started to benderize and benderize. And I was like, you know what, I don't care one way or the other, you know. And I really couldn't care less, right? So then what I do is I just hand him the money and say, go ahead and give me the products. So he goes to the back and he comes back with less of the product than what I ordered, than the original order, than what I paid for, which is his second deception. So on the one hand, he told me that he had the thing, and then on the other hand, he comes back, gives me this monumental offer, and then returns, and he doesn't even have the original offer, the original order that I made, you know. And then he says, you know what, he just needs a few minutes to go get the rest of the stuff, right? And you know what, he's just going to be a few minutes away. Don't worry, he'll call me. Blah 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 blah. And I said, what do you mean you'll call me? He said, no, man, just give me a few minutes, 5, 10 minutes. You know what I mean? Which was no problem at the time. I had 5 or 10 minutes, so I was like, you know what? Do whatever you need to do, right? Do whatever you need to do, and I'll wait. Regardless, I never saw him again. That was it. That was the extent of the reality, right? So now I'm stuck with a fraction of what I wanted, right? And I paid an exorbitant amount. I mean, I practically like I and I'm not going to be able to make not nearly enough coffee with this, right? If he had just given me the original order, it would have been perfectly fine. It would have been perfectly fine. I did not need the extra and the special, right? So in my mind, I'm trying to put this together and say, well, obviously he needed the money. Obviously he's having tough times. Obviously he's a poor individual. You could just see it by the way that he looked. Blah 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 blah. Right? But this isn't my problem. This isn't my problem. I'm a customer here. I'm here to buy some coffee. You know what I mean? Whatever problems you're going through, they have nothing to do with me. You know what I mean? And if you're not holding enough merchandise and enough product in your store, you shouldn't be accepting orders that you can't fill. And then come there and then make even more grandeur promises and then not even fulfill that. So I'm standing there, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes goes by, and then so I start calling him, right? So I start calling him because I know this individual. I've known this individual for a very long time, right? Like decades. So I have his contact details, right? So I start calling him, right? And he actually takes my calls. He's actually answering my calls, saying, so he says, I'm 10 minutes away. I'm in an Uber. I'm stuck in traffic. But all the while I can hear this guy is not moving. People, when you're in the bathroom, people can tell. Like if I record these videos in the bathroom, you'd be able to quickly tell that I'm in the bathroom. If I was in a moving vehicle, and I actually did this, I tried to record something in a moving vehicle, and I could actually tell the difference, right? This is why I don't record in vehicles, because I can actually tell the difference, right? And if I could tell the difference, I know somebody's going to be able to tell the difference. So, I was like, this guy isn't moving, right? But let me give him the benefit of the doubt. Man, that's when he starts to weave this web of lies, all kinds of things. Man, I won't even take you through them. I won't even take you through them, right? So eventually I stopped calling him, right? And after, like, I just after some time I decided, you know what, I'm just not gonna call this guy. Eventually I have to move on with my life. And here I am now recording because I moved on with my life, right? But then he calls me. Then he has the nerve to call me, this guy, right? And then he offers to come and give me the thing tomorrow, right? Which means I'll never see him again. Here's the problem with this. I called him beforehand, as I mentioned, to say I'm going to be here on a specific date, and this is what I want. So he knew that I was coming to him, and he knew that I was coming to spend money. And the fact that he didn't even have the order ready is an indication to me that he was intending on doing exactly this. He was intending on doing exactly this, right? And so which says to which begs the question, why call me? Why call me and say, oh, I'm gonna be late? Why call me and say, oh, let's meet again tomorrow, right? Because he knows he's never gonna see me again. He knows he's never gonna see me again, right? Now, why would I share this with you? Why would I share this tragic tale of betrayal with you? Because I believe there are some hard lessons to learn here. And by the way, I've learned these lessons before. This isn't the first time that I'm being betrayed. It's just one of the most recent, right? It's not the first time. It's not the first time this week. In fact, it wasn't even the first time today that I was betrayed. But there are lessons to be learned here, right? And I believe we, as the students of the deceptive arts, we can learn from these things, right? And you know, it's the first thing you need to learn is that it's not going to be a stranger that betrays you, right? It's going to be your own people. It's going to be somebody who knows you, somebody who knows your patterns, who can anticipate you. These are going to be your friends, your family, people that you've known for many years, and associates, right? It's just that simple. I mean, like, this guy, he knew my patterns, he knew my routines, he knew my vulnerabilities, he knew my spending habits. He also knows that I'm never around for a very long time. So he knows that, he'll see me once and then he won't see me for months. He'll see me once and then he won't see me for months. He knows now that, in fact, I could be gone for years and years and years and years. He knows that he's not going to see me again, right? He knows that he's absolutely not going to see me again, right? And, the product that he has, it's just coffee, by the way. So it's not really that big a deal, you know. But people watch, people who learn your routines. This is why Sun Tzu says the best position you can have is to conceal your disposition, right? Because on the one hand, and also to be prepared, right? So I was trying to be prepared, but all I did was make him prepared for me, right? Because I told him exactly what I wanted and exactly how much money I was wanting to spend and exactly when I would spend that money. This was only an attempt to be more efficient at my own deception, but this then gave him a time to conjure up his own deception, right? So he just took the details that I gave him, and he just waited for me to come deliver the money to him, and he ran away, right? Now, this seems like an obvious thing to do. Somebody gives you the details, they plan they tell you their plan, you just stand there, get the money, and then off you go. You won't see this person for months and months. In fact, you may never see them again, right? Now you don't have to do no work, right? So The people who know how you spend, how you move, what your times are, they are the ones who have the ability to betray you, you know, as are the ones who betrayed me today, right? Now, this is just the first point, right? It's never going to be a stranger. It's never going to be somebody who doesn't know you or your moves that's going to betray you. It's going to be your own people, right? The second thing, right? And this is one for us, the practitioners of the deceptive arts, right? Just remember this. Just remember this. And maybe this is something that I should have said sooner, but it applies now. You only get one chance to deceive someone. Yes, you can lie. You only get one really good go, one really good attempt, one really good try at deception. And and if you pull it off, right, and people believe you, you can probably continue to do that deception again and again. But if it's an obvious one, like in my case, where I tell you I'm coming, you tell me okay. You tell me you have the coffee, I say okay. I get there, you don't have the coffee, I give you the money, you take the money, but you don't return the coffee, right? You don't return with the coffee, right? This is an obvious deception. You're not going to do that twice. If you call me again and tell me that you actually have coffee, because consider this, even if you think of yourself as a con man, you're not really a con man. Had I not given you these details, there's no way that you would have been able to swindle me into giving you that money. You only got that money because you had a product that I enjoyed, right? For whatever the reason, right? But if you are discovered, right, to have deceived someone, even if that person forgives you, even if you have something that they cannot live without, that they need, and they come back and deal with you, they are never going to deal with you the same again. So, for instance, if deal with this guy again and he says to me, he actually does have a special offer on coffee, I'm not taking that special offer. I'm just going to say, just give me what I ordered. And I'm not going to hand him the money first, because you give him the money, he goes, he gets the stuff, blah, 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 blah. Sometimes it's a situation of like, you know, he'll have somebody there, his little brother or something, right? So while the guy is doing the order, you're paying the bill and you're waiting for the order. This happens all the time, right? You go to any fast food restaurant, you make an order. The first thing they do is they take your money and then process the order, and you wait for the order, you take your food, and off you go. It's the most natural thing in the world, right? The only other places that do the opposite is when you do your own shopping, so you don't prepare your own food. There you go pick up everything that you need and then you pay afterwards, right? You go grab everything that you need and then you pay before you leave. But you don't leave the store without the product, right? You don't leave, the payment, the sequence of payment is inconsequential. So you can pay first and get the product, you can get the product and then pay, right? It's inconsequential. What is important is that those two things have to happen for there to be a successful transition. Money must be transferred in one way, and then goods, products, and services need to be returned in the opposite way, right? If you are discovered to have been deceptive to someone, even once, you know, there's always going to be an element of doubt. Even if they forgive you, even if they say it's okay, I understand you were in a tough time. Even if he comes and he tells me that, you know, it was a funeral and he had something to do, but he did get the product, whatever, and he has the coffee waiting for me. I'm not inclined to return to get that coffee. I'm not inclined after having gone through that deception. And don't get me wrong, I use deception myself. I use deception myself. And I always say that you need to, lie by omission. Don't go out and insult people's intelligence, by telling them something that's obviously unbelievable, you know. The next thing that's there for us to learn, the third lesson that's there for us to learn, is that everything is going to be replaceable. You know, everything is going to be replaceable. I have to be honest with you. A few weeks ago, before I decided to pull the temporal pincer movement and I arrived in Bulgaria, right? I wondered how useful and wise it was doing business with a merchant and a trader. I mean, especially now in the age of AI. I mean, let's just think of a few ways that I could have acquired this coffee. You know, one, I could have just went straight to the Buckstar franchise, which is, there are like 100 of them between here and where this individual is, and I could have probably got exactly the same deal. I could have made the order that I wanted originally and gotten that exact order and paid a fair price and just walked away, right? And better yet, I could have just had that order delivered. A Buckstar's, you know, coffee shop and franchise outlet, they they'll deliver that stuff straight to your door, same day delivery. Maybe 24-hour delivery, whatnot. You know, and they'll do it at the most convenient hour. They'll ask you, so when's the most convenient hour, and you'll give them like a 2-hour window. Between 2 and 4, and they'll come and deliver it exactly where you are. You don't even have to give them your address. They will come to you exactly where you are. You just send them your location and they'll come and deliver it. You know. And of course, eventually I did go to Buckstars, right? I went to Buckstar and I got exactly what I wanted in every way, and I'm very, very happy. Thank you, Buckstars. And I got it at a good price, right? And I moved forward with my life. So, yes, I mean, I was inconvenienced, but I did eventually get what I wanted, right? I did eventually get what I wanted. And the when I think about that feeling that I had, one of the things that, I really calculated it and I worked it out. And I was like, as a master of the deceptive arts who claims to appear to be upholding the law, I merely appear to be upholding the law. I want to be seen to be upholding the law, right? I wondered, truly about the wisdom of doing business with this type of individual. I knew he couldn't be trusted. And I knew that, other than with me, many of his other dealings were just not untoward. They were just not right. You know. And I wondered, what would be the benefit of associating with this type of individual for me? And in truth, there would be no benefit at all, nothing but liabilities. However, when I considered the product itself, there's a uniqueness to this coffee that I'm talking about. There's a uniqueness in the way that you prepare it, that you drink it. It's a bit of an interesting kind of, how would you describe it? There's a ritual to it that is very different from every other type of coffee. but ultimately it's just coffee in the end, right? And it's like, how it's like the difference between getting the coffee ground, where it's like instant coffee, and then having to grind the coffee beans yourself to the specificity that you like them before you put them in the filter and whatnot. you know it's really that kind of difference, when in reality you can get very good high quality instant coffee that's processed just right, and you can get very bad coffee beans, right? So that if you don't process them right, anything can happen, right? So this was a guy who offered a very unique experience, right? And was that experience worth being robbed over? No. And it's the kind of experience where it's like, you really ask yourself, is this experience really worth the trouble in having? And the answer overall was no. However, having thought about it, having thought about, the ups and downs, the pros and cons, weighed the one from the other, I made the decision to continue until it was no longer practical to continue, and that moment has arrived. So I made the decision to say, look, I'll continue with it as long as it's practical, right? And there's a benefit, and I can see the tangible benefit. But the liabilities also were not so stringent that they could not be overcome until now. Until now, where suddenly the benefits are not so beneficial, and the liabilities just seem to outweigh those benefits. Whereas before it was a bit of a draw. And it shouldn't be a draw. It should have been a total outright victory. And the fact that I was working on a draw should have let me know that that is not a victory. And now here I am, begrudging a loss, right? Having worked so much to accommodate a draw, now I find myself begrudging a loss, you know, an unnecessary loss. Because now I spent double. You see, if I had just taken my original amount plus half of what I spent over there at the merchant buying the coffee, I would have gotten a fantastic deal at the Buck Stars. I would have really gotten a tremendous deal. But instead, I went with the merchant, an unscrupulous character who just offered nothing more than a unique experience. But at the end, he was a dud. And I don't begrudge the loss of money. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I really do. But it's not the money so much that I lost, because I was going to lose that money anyway. I mean, I was going to spend that money anyway on unnecessary things, right? Things that I like, but they're not really that necessary. I begrudge the necessity, right? And the unavoidable and undeniable need to cut people off and to make a sacrifice to the solitude. It is just unavoidable how necessary it is to cut people off, because I know he's going to regret this. Man, he's never going to find somebody that's been that loyal a customer for that long and keep spending money on, quite frankly, a product that nobody needs to buy. This is why I'm hesitant to support small operations, because eventually they get desperate. And I know a few of these. I used to go to this restaurant that had tremendous food. You could bring your counterpart, you could bring your counterpart's family, whatever you wanted to do, and make a good impression just on the food alone. Eventually, one day I went there, I brought up a counterpart, and I was happy to go there. And the food was mediocre. And the counterpart just sort of overlooked it, right? Then I went back once more by myself, and the food was even worse than before. I just stopped going. I was like, I'm not gonna punish myself over this guy's food, just because he used to have a good reputation. And eventually, I walked past there, and they had closed the restaurant. They were selling sneakers and T-shirts, right? So it was like and that's the kind of situation it is. I can go for months, come back, and find out that you're not in business anymore. I'm not implying that this individual won't be in business anymore. He's been doing this for over 3 decades. I'm just saying that he just lost a customer that, quite frankly, you could have had for years and years and years. I mean, this guy could have extracted a tremendous amount of money from me, which he now will never have, you know. And this is really what I begrudge. I begrudge just having to cut people off, and I'm constantly cutting people off. And it's never the people that you hate, you know, like that's cutting off someone that you hate is not a sacrifice. It's not a sacrifice. It's a benefit to you. It's an easy way to profit out of life. You just cut off someone that you hate, never speak to them again, and now you're up, right? The real sacrifice, the real hard thing is when you have to cut off the good people. The people with the good families, or that come from good families, the ones with a good heart and a good soul, who are just dumb and made a stupid mistake at a stupid time with a stupid person, and it's gonna cost them. In the long run, it's going to cost them. You know, it's the ones that are cool, man. It's the cool ones, the ones that you like, and the ones that you love, that you must let go, and that you must sacrifice. This this is a must if you are gonna live in the solitude. And today I learned that in a multitude of ways, but I think this is one of the ways that's gonna best demonstrate that. You must repeal and replace. Pull back and then replace it. Take it out and then replace it. Of course, try to replace it with something better. But those loved ones, those ones that you like, your favorite ones, they are the problem in your life, right? They are clouding your judgment, and you need to get rid of them, you know? And I have to be honest, besides the simple fact that he had become useless, pointless, and redundant, he'd also become a risk and hazardous, to deal with, you know, and dealing with him was an unnecessary risk. You know, there is an appeal in my mind to having that type of coffee prepared in that type of way, purchased from that type of style of vendor in that type of environment. And it's like, I'll give you an example. It's like buying fruit of a fruit vendor in the street, in uh, down on soil, rambutan, right? Or is it rambu tree, right? One of those, right? The one, not Carlson Road, the other one, and not at the top half. Like, you have to cross the street at the bottom. That's the place, right? That's the place, right? It has, you know, it has that appeal to it, you know, but then when when you think about that coffee and that you can go everywhere in the world and none of that style actually matters. That style of preparation, none of that actually matters. It's just one of those nice things to have and to demonstrate to people, hey, look at how I can make this particular type of coffee, this particular type of tea. But there's a whole nother side with dealing with this type of person, right? And and while I'll never miss him, I'll never miss him. I must admit, I did kind of like him for all that it's worth, right? Until now. Now we're done, right? Now you get your one mistake. This is that mistake, you know. I did kind of like him and his coffee and his way, right? Despite the risk and, you know, the hazard, and the dealing with the unpleasant type, unpleasant person, it had its appeal. And this is something that even I need to remember. Number four. Number four is something that even I need to remember, and this is that Latin phrase: "Forsus in unus is forsus in omnibus." Forces in unos is forces in omnibus. I think we should make this the slogan and motto for the deceptive arts. And it means that if one thing is false, everything is false. Forces in unos, one thing is false. Forces in omnibus, everything is false. Right? And today, I mean, this individual lied for hours, days even. He spent days lying. And as you know, deception is an act of war. Deception is absolutely an act of war. You know? And the last lie that he told me, by the way, he called me. He called me. Because there's a part of him, I think, that he knows that he overstepped a boundary that he should not have crossed. He overstepped a boundary that he should have just took the money for the coffee and moved on. And if he didn't have enough coffee, he should have just took enough money for that amount of coffee, and we could have both moved on. Now he's featured on a video from the ancient one, you know. But then he calls me right near the end of the day after I decided, you know what, I'm done with this. I'm moving on. Right? This is not worth the time because now I'm losing time waiting. Like 2 hours had gone by, and I just said, you know what, just call me when you get back, because I'm leaving. So eventually he calls me and he says to me, he promises me that he'll eventually get all this stuff together. I mean, I said, what do you mean eventually? You told me you had this. He said, don't worry, I'll get it for you. When are you coming back? He said, can I get it for you tomorrow morning? I said, no, maybe I'll be gone for 3 to 4 months. He said he's going to store this for me. He said, I'll keep that for you and I'll keep it safe for you. I'll keep it in a nice place for you. Right? And I said, if you can do that, that means you and I are cool again. Obviously, we are not cool again. We're never going to be cool again. Even if all of that was true, right? Even and which of course it's not, which of course is not, But even if he wasn't prepared, ready with the product, he knew I was coming. Something came up, it slipped his mind. But now he's gonna go put it together quickly. Don't worry, just give me a few minutes, right? Give me 10, 15 minutes, blah, blah, blah. I don't know what these people do with their coffee beans, right? He shouldn't have taken the money if he wasn't gonna give me the product. And if he was intent on making things right, he could just give me the money back. I mean, he could just give me the money back right now. Right? right? He could just say, hey man, listen, it's not coming together. Take your money. But he hasn't done that either, you know. And I know him well enough to know that he's not gonna do that. Right? I know him well enough to know that he's not gonna wanna make this right in any way. You know, he knew he took advantage, right? And part of the thing was the fact that he knows that he's not going to see me for a very, very long time, or at the least. But in truth, he probably knows that he's never going to see me again. He's really, really not going to see me again. And then there's the issue of the fact that, you know, you're really trying to sell coffee, you know, surrounded by box stars everywhere. I mean, you sell two products, plain coffee and plain tea with a little bit of milk. They sell a caramel frappuccino, man. I have no idea what that means, but I know you don't have it. And if they can have a caramel frappuccino, yeah, I'm pretty sure they've got tea with milk and sugar, you know. So, you know, but what I do know for sure is that he will never see me again, no matter what the situation. Of that, I can absolutely assure you. I'm not the forgiving type. And I'm also not the type of guy to come back and give you a second chance. If you took the first chance and didn't even go out of your way to make it right, you know, I'm not gonna go pursue that, right? And more than that, there's really no proof or trace or record that I have ever dealt with this individual at all. There's no evidence or trace or proof of any kind that I knew or ever even spoke to this type of individual for a single moment in my life. All of our interactions were via voice. So even our phone calls were via voice. The only thing that you can see is an outgoing number and an incoming number, a missed number, and that kind of thing. But there would be no text messages, no emails, no DMs, no WhatsApps, none of that. And all purchases were made in cash. And every conversation was either had by voice or in person. And all that is on the ancient phone, which is absolutely not in my name, right? It actually says ancient one on there. Yes, I know I'm in all the way, right? So if he ever says that he knows me or something about me, I'll deny it. Just as I'm sure that if I went to the authorities and claimed what had happened today, he'd probably also deny it. I mean, there's people who are going to listen to this and say, well, you know, that this sounds all fictitious. You traveled how in time? And you can do this in reality? Yes, you can. It depends on where you're going. You can pull a temporal pinch. You can absolutely steal a day just by traveling from, you know, back and forth between certain time zones. You know, you can actually do that. Yeah. No, it's not my first time. No, I've done it before. I've actually done it before. And yeah, it works. It works. I went to an island and came back. I left tomorrow and came back yesterday, right? So, you know, also by the way, I'm not inclined to go back across time zones, to go back across vortexes, and then to even go back across the street from the Buckstar Coffee franchise and outlet and start a fight or an argument over a conversation I can't even prove, over money that I can't prove that I spent, over a spontaneous offer that I can't prove even uh, ever happened, or a deal that I can't prove that I agreed to, right? You know, I can't prove any of this. I can't prove that I ordered the product, you know, with the man who doesn't even know my actual real name. I mean, and I don't actually know his actual real name. I just know he goes by a certain name. It's like a color and a letter of the alphabet, like turquoise G or something like that. It's like some nonsense, right? Yeah, he calls me the ancient one. You know, this type of incident goes right into the file of things called deny it ever happened. Right? This goes right into the file of things called deny it ever happened. Because there's no proof of anything. There's no proof of anything. If he calls me out, I'm denying it. Right? I call him out, I know he's absolutely gonna deny it. So both of us can go our own way. I mean, I for one won't be pursuing anything, and I don't think he's gonna pursue anything either. You know. But from this, I want us to remember before I conclude. By the way, there's not going to be an article today for many reasons. Chief among them is because I'm traveling, right? One of the things that I wanted to do with this platform was to be able to keep creating videos and making content even if I am abroad and away or traveling. So, one of the sacrifices that I have to make, and I can already hear the kids in the back of the classroom cheering, that they don't have to do the day's reading, uh, losers, right? Guys, read every day. But one of the things that I'm realizing is either going to be sacrificed, is going to be my thoughts and opinions on the or the monologues, or the articles themselves. If I'm traveling, which I am right now, and I'm returning tomorrow to arrive yesterday, right? Having left, today to arrive, to spend a day and then arrive back today. Time travel can be very, very complicated, you know. But one of the things for us to remember is the phrase forces in unus and is forces in omnibus. And I always say, man, you're better off running your own deceptions rather than trying to prepare for the deceptions of others, because there's nothing you can do to prepare for the deceptions of others, right? He had the whole thing ready to go, and as soon as the money was in his hand, he didn't care how much money it was. Off he was, gone, right? Falsus and Nunos is falsus and omnibus. And even if I tried to chase him, where was I going to chase him to? And then what if I catch him? Then what? Then what? Then he denies anything, and then it looks like I'm trying to rob him. No, no, no. I'm better off just doing absolutely nothing. This is that do nothing strategy. This is where it applies. In moments like this, when you're better off doing absolutely nothing, right? But this is a true story, by the way. This is a true story, and it's not the first one. Like, maybe I'll tell you another situation where I was tragically betrayed, and it ended what could have been something really, really good, you know. But one of the things that I'm coming to realize is that this individual, he was one of those degrees are not important people, you know, and then he turned 30, and then it became very real, because now at 21, you seem like you got it all figured out because you got a little bit of money, and then we all look like we don't know what we're doing because you're a 21-year-old who spends all day in the classroom breaking up his hand asking for permission to go to the bathroom. You're a grown man, you know. But this is the path to success. This is the sacrifice that you must make. You must humble yourself in front of your teachers, no matter how age you are, how old you are, what your age is. That's the sacrifice that you make to be a scholar, right? By humbling yourself in this way, you know. But, a lot of people, they just didn't want to humble themselves to the almighty dollar. They didn't want to humble themselves to the wisdom of knowledge and the knowledge of wisdom and then knowing the difference. They didn't want to humble themselves to the process. They wanted to be chaiwalas. And so they are. And what they thought was that they could deviate, right? It's the same thing that what a lot of content creators think. They think that they're going to be doing something very creative every day, and now you're spending 3 hours editing, right? Something that you're going to spend 3 hours editing something that is going to be, quite frankly, consumed in less than an hour. Whereas here I am making an hour's worth of content in exactly an hour's worth of work, right? So, you should have just stayed in university, man. You should have just stayed in university, because now here you are robbing your customers. You know, my prediction is that, the coffee business isn't or at least the mom and pop coffee sector of the industry is not doing very well. You know, they're just not coping. So eventually they're going to try and pull stunts. And one of those stunts is going to be theft. You know, I have to accept that as a person who starts to have more things, and I've had a fair amount of things, I have to come to accept that people are either going to break my things or they're going to steal from me, right? So I'm not one who gets sued because, I got a vasectomy. By the way, freeze your sperm, get a vasectomy. Can't steal that. Or maybe they can steal your sperm. Oh man, I never thought of that. One battle at a time. One battle at a time. These counterparts, they're going to start stealing your sperm. But freeze your sperm and get a vasectomy. That's the message of this platform. No one is going to be able to steal that from you. But still, as tough as this economy is, you can expect people to do crazy things in the name of money. You can expect people to do crazy things in the name of money as this economy continues to crush, right? And this economy, if you're weak, it's going to crush you. It's going to expose your strategy if your strategy is flawed, right? And also, if you have a flawed strategy of making videos, that's going to be exposed too, because then you won't be able to create content wherever you are, with or without an article. And this is what's happening to me today. I am hoping to be back in the Sanctum of Solitude tomorrow. Not that sanctum, the other sanctum. No, not that one, the original one. Yes, that original sanctum, the citadel at the end of time. So I'm hoping to be back there by tomorrow. But I'll probably just make another video just like this, but not one where I talk about being robbed. I'll probably talk about your delicious, delightful wife instead. That's probably going to make me feel better. But otherwise, I did get all the coffee that I needed from the corporation, the Buckstars coffee shop, franchise, and outlet. And I'm very satisfied with what I got. I know I'll be able to move forward with confidence with that. But this is the end of the video, and again, I want to thank you for your time, your patience, and for lending me your ear. Please share this video with anybody who's been robbed or may want to know about somebody that's been robbed, because I've been robbed. I've been robbed, man. It's a terrible feeling, but yeah, it happens. Also, please like the video, right? So share it with a friend, like the video if you've enjoyed the fact that I've been robbed. Miserable. And then also, of course, leave a comment. You are more than welcome to just laugh at me at the fact that I've just been robbed. Terrible, man. Man, I know that guy. And I'm going to see him again, and he's going to act like he didn't rob me. I'm going to see him, but I'm not going to see him. I'm not going to go look for him. He's just got the kind of face that you won't be able to ignore when you do see him, because now he's a criminal. But indeed, please leave a comment. You could always laugh and whatnot, and I'll probably laugh with you. Right? Thank you for your time and your patience, lending me your ear. I really appreciate it. Please freeze your sperm, get a vasectomy, protect yourself, protect your solitude, and I hope you have a wonderful day where at least you don't get robbed by people that you know.